Hi, welcome to Conservative Apologetics. I want to talk about the economy for a moment and President Obama's seeming inability to relate anything to the economy that is even remotely in touch with reality. The Congressional Budget Office is going to be releasing their new deficit estimates this month, and most economists think it's going to be pretty doggone ugly. In fact, CBO Director Douglas Holtz-Eakin, who was he was a former CBO director, says it's going to be pretty depressing. Let's take a look at what's going on here. Bill Clinton's last year in office, 2000, we had a $236 billion budget surplus from October 2000 or September 2009 when the fiscal year begins, or 2000 rather, through 2001. Then from 2001 to 2002, we had a $128 billion surplus, first year of Bush's presidency, and of course 9/11 came. And after that, fiscal year 2002, which would be October 02 to September 03, there was a $158 billion budget deficit, which now when you look at considering the fact that we're throwing $68 billion to AIG, $100 billion to GM, that doesn't seem so much anymore, does it? Well, for fiscal year 2008, now Obama's big on blaming Bush for his problems. The deficit problems and all this. It's Bush's fault. It's Bush's fault. Well, let's look at the reality of that. Fiscal year 2008, October 2008 through September 2009. All right. The budget deficit is going to be estimated to be right around $459 billion. Okay. Or I'm sorry, from 07 to 08. $459 billion. Now, that's not a real good budget deficit. Nobody likes to be in the red that much. But now let's look at Obama's budget deficit through 09, fiscal year 09. It looks like we're going to be right at about $1.84 trillion in the red. All right. Now, just for a moment, let's take away the stimulus package that Bush passed, the $700 billion stimulus package. Let's take that off the table because that's adding to Obama's budget deficit. All right. That still leaves Obama with a $1.1 trillion budget deficit because of his $787 billion package, and then all these other things that he's passed, his budget for the remainder of the year, which quadrupled everything. It just basically messed it up. A fiscal year 2009 deficit of $1.8 trillion is anticipated by the White House. All right, that's reaching levels that would produce a deficit 4 times the amount of last year's deficit. All right. 4 times the amount. And so even if we take out the $700 billion stimulus package that Bush passed, that means that $1.1 trillion of this budget deficit belongs right in Obama's lap. All right? So let's take a look at some of the things that are going on in the economy. Well, the deficit, $1.8 trillion, and it's projected by the White House to be $1.3 trillion in fiscal year 2010. All right. Currently, the national debt stands at $11.7 trillion. Now, Timothy Geithner, Secretary of Treasury, comes to the Congress the other day and says, we need to raise the debt level above $12 trillion. These guys have no desire to exercise. The Obama administration has no desire to exercise fiscal responsibility. None whatsoever. They want to raise the national debt level. And here's why they need to do it. Because they just underestimated the way things were. The economy is set to shrink by about 2.6% this year. That is more than twice the White House projection in February and May of this year. So they way underestimated the contraction of the economy. Tax revenue is down by $353 billion over 10 months, And that's about what the White House thought it would lose for the entire fiscal year 2009. So from October 2008 through September 2009, they've underestimated the loss to the tax coffers. Unemployment was projected by the White House to reach 8.1% this year. Well, it was 9.4% in July, and it continues to remain stagnant. Spending for jobless benefits, Medicaid, Medicare, has gone through the roof with the loss of work and health insurance. Jobless benefits are costing twice as much as they did last year. So, according to White House Budget Director Peter Orszag, the deficit picture is very challenging. No kidding. And you now, Mr. Obama, want to go ahead and add $1 trillion health care plan that is going to cost way more than $1 trillion. You know it. We know it. Former CBO director Robert Reischauer, who's president of the nonpartisan Urban Institute, said this, that the administration tend to believe that, quote, the harder and faster one falls, the more rapid and steep the recovery. And I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong. Mr. Obama, it's time to wake up. Quit spending like a drunk sailor. The economy is not in the position that you seemed to think it was. And now from 2008 through 2009, your fiscal year 2009, you're going to have a $1.8 trillion budget deficit. Even if we took Bush's stimulus plan out of there, you'd still have a $1.1 trillion deficit. Let's take another $100 billion out of there for other things, X number of billion for AIG that Bush put out and things such as that. You still have a $1 trillion budget deficit. That's almost 3 times as much as Bush's 2007 to 2008, the 2008 fiscal budget deficit. So I think it's time you quit blaming Bush for your problems. Yes, you inherited a recession. But you know what? Other presidents have inherited recessions. And when you look through history, when you look at the recession that Reagan encountered and took on when he came into office, what did he do? He's doing the exact opposite you're doing. He's cutting taxes. He's cutting government. He cut taxes and cut government. And guess what? We had a huge recovery. That's really the genesis of the 1990s stock market run-up, was the Reagan era. And yet you come into office and you inherit a recession, and you want to raise taxes, you want to increase government spending. I got news for you, Mr. Obama. FDR did not bring about recovery in this country because of all the spending. In fact, that probably made it worse. What helped this country recover was World War II. Don't forget that. Stop spending. Call your congressmen, Americans. You own this country. Tell them to stop the spending. Thanks for watching Conservative Apologetics.